The Ensemble podcast is intended for professional financial advisors. All discussion is limited to publicly available information and should not be interpreted as legal, professional, or financial advice. Ensemble does not hold an AFS license nor provide any financial services. Before making investment decisions, you should obtain financial advice from a qualified financial advisor.
Hey guys, it's Ben Nash here. I'm one of the co-founders at Ensemble and founder of financial advice company Pivot Wealth, which is my business baby I started from scratch a little bit over 7 years ago. In that time, I've leveraged some of the learnings of the Ensemble community to scale the business to become one of the better known financial advice companies for high income accumulators in Australia. And through this podcast, you can join me each Tuesday as I have the absolute privilege of interviewing some amazing people where I'm going to selfishly be able to learn and continue my journey to improve every area of my advice business. Hopefully you can learn a few things on that journey as well. Jump over to ensemble.com, and if you haven't already signed up, to learn and share from others, or simply download the app.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by NetWealth. Imagine a world where you can offer clients access to local and international investments. A world where you can engage with clients meaningfully, backed by powerful data and insights with mobile-friendly technology. A world where you can build business efficiencies through scaled managed accounts and bulk reporting. And a world where you can get all the latest news, research and insights to spot the changes that really matter. Wealth is more than just money. It's about opportunity and progress. A world of opportunity awaits you at netwealth.com.au/woo.
Hey guys, Ben Nash from the XY Advisor team, and today I'm here with Cara Graham. Cara is Principal Wealth Advisor at the Wealth Designers over in the great state of WA. Cara, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Ben. It's excellent to be here.
And particularly good for you to have you here, given that you're on mat leave. Although, you know, as I sometimes hear from my wife, perhaps that's a bit of an excuse to get out of the baby talk as well. But yeah, appreciate you taking the time as you're balancing all of those plates, and no doubt we'll end up chatting a little bit more about that. But I thought maybe a good place to start is if you could talk us through like your journey in advice and how you've ended up where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I entered advice land back in 2006. So I had finished school. I was a fresh 17-year-old, had no idea what I wanted to do, and ended up getting a job rather than going to uni. I thought maybe I'll figure it out first and then head to uni. So I ended up getting a job for a pretty prestigious firm, which I didn't really even realize at the time because I was, a 17-year-old. You don't really know a lot at that stage. But it ended up being such a good opportunity for me. I stayed there for 5 years. They paid for part of my uni degree. I moved up the ranks, so to speak. Went from being the office junior through to the business unit manager at one stage, like the administration manager, and then on to becoming an associate advisor. So it was a pretty good 5 years, but towards the end of that, the organisation got bought out by one of the major banks in Australia, and they just changed a lot. The culture changed. The sort of management decisions got centralised over to the East Coast, and I really just decided it wasn't the kind of place that I wanted to work at anymore. Where I wanted to work somewhere where the owner and the decision maker could look me in the eye and tell me about the decisions they made, rather than, getting almost like an anonymous email saying, we're making this change, we're taking away this support resource, etc. So I went on the lookout to find a new business to work for, and I came across the Wealth Designers. So that was over 11 years ago now. It was back in 2011. And I met Troy McMillan. He's the sort of owner and primary owner, founder of the business. And really, I never looked back. We've had some ups and downs along the way. I think that everybody does over the course of 11 years. But, for every sort of challenge we've faced, I always sort of thought, I don't actually want to work anywhere else. For all of the bad stuff, there's way more good stuff within our business. So 11 years later, still here.
Nice. And yeah, I feel like you got a little fortunate. I won't say lucky, but a little bit fortunate in that, because I know Troy runs a solid outfit, and it's great to watch the wealth designers just crushing it over there as well. I had Troy on the podcast a little while back and mentioned to him that the wealth designers was one of the businesses that I had sort of looked up to when I was starting my own business 7 years ago. And it's so good to see you guys going from strength to strength and just dominating over there. Cara, one of the things that we were just chatting mid offline and talking about business ownership, and I know that you've gone through a bit of a journey around that as well. Can you just talk us through that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I guess when I was a young advisor, let's call it, going through uni and things like that, one of my aspirations, probably my biggest goal, is I wanted to be a business owner. That was really what I wanted to strive for, or what I felt like I should strive for, in a sense. And I achieved that goal a few years ago. So I was, when I was still under 30, we made it, sort of felt like it was a pretty big deal. I was under 30 and a business owner. I thought that was pretty cool. I bought into the business. And the last few years have been pretty challenging for me personally. I've had some family challenges. I've had a family member that passed away. I've had my parents getting a bit more elderly. I've got a sick brother as well. And I've also had 2 kids in that time. So it's been pretty full on. And I guess what I've realized in that time, that being a business owner actually isn't that important to me. I think on reflection and after everything I've learned over the last few years, that, maybe I almost thought it should be important. I thought maybe that was the pinnacle of being in advice land. But really what I've learned is that I want to be a senior member of the team. I want to be able to contribute to decisions, but I don't actually want all of that added stress of being a business owner. I'd rather, be able to focus on my clients, do a really excellent job looking after them, and then be able to come home and focus on my family, that my immediate family and my, and my parents and my siblings.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think that a lot of people, and it's pretty common in advice, that's a thing that people work towards as you feel like it's sort of the progression as you get more senior in a team. But like we've been recruiting advisors over the last couple of years and chatting to people, and I think there's a lot of people that say that that's their ultimate goal, but don't really realize the things that come with that, the extra sort of responsibilities, the risks, the stresses, and all of those sorts of things. And like I love sort of running my business and the challenge that comes with that. But there are days where I wish I just had to turn up to work and do my thing as well. And I think it's an interesting lesson for people, and particularly I think like depends on the business and what the dynamics of that is, but perhaps in a smaller business, if you're the one that you're taking on all of that responsibility yourself anyway, then it might make more sense. But when you're in a business that's on a strong growth path where there's so much stuff going on, that maybe, being senior in a team, it's going to be fulfilling and you still have the same control, but you don't have those extra responsibilities and the extra pressures and stress as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I really look up to everybody that does run a business, because I can appreciate how difficult it is. It's so incredibly challenging. And let's face it, financial advice land is bloody hard. It feels like everything is changing. It feels like we're getting stuff thrown at us from all angles in terms of challenges. And that's probably never going to go away. I was chatting with one of our team the other day, and we were sort of talking about how, every year at the Wealth Designers, there's some kind of change project, and we're always going, we just need to get through this and then, and we just need to get through this and then, and, then as soon as we finish it, we've got another change project. So, it's not going to get any easier. And that's probably just been a change of perspective for me. That,
Totally.
I want to be part of the solution, but maybe I just don't necessarily want the weight on my shoulders all the time.
Yeah, I think change definitely seems like the constant ever since like the FOFA changes and everything. Thankfully, it seems like they've been ratcheting up the compliance and admin, and I think it really has had a quite a positive impact on advice and advice consumers. Thankfully, with what we're seeing at the moment, that has some potential that it may come back the other way. But given that the landscape is changing, the technology is changing, the markets are changing, people are changing, consumers are changing, it means that there's always something else to that you need to be changing if you want to be keeping up. And yeah, there's a lot there, and particularly in multi-advisor businesses, it's like you got that extra dimension of being able to create an approach that's going to cater for different personalities, different thinking profiles, like all of those sorts of things. So it means that there's we're never short of something to look at as well. And I think in a lot of cases you can get the same sort of empowerment, the same control, but not have to necessarily be the driver. And I find it challenging enough for me, and like I've got a couple of young kids, but my wife does a lot of the heavy lifting there, and I'm fortunate to be in that position where she can do that. I think if you're balancing those things out as well, like it's just an extra dimension to that challenge as well.
No, definitely.
Cara, what's for you, what's been the most challenging part of your advice journey?
I think there's probably two parts to this, and maybe I've just alluded to it before, is change. I think we've got a bit of a continuous change culture within our business, constant never-ending improvement, and we're always evolving a little bit along the way, sort of, a little bit of change every day in a sense. But some of the large-scale changes that we've had to implement have been so challenging, and then ultimately, as you're implementing them as well, you learn things along the way, which maybe would have impacted the decision that you make from there too. So then you're kind of piling change on change, which is quite hard. And then the other sort of part that I think is also been really challenging is just having the right people around me. So, we've had a lot of success in terms of recruitment, but, I'd probably, I think it's fair to say we've probably also had a couple of failures, a fair few failures in a sense in there as well. Just having, the wrong people join our organisation, which maybe they're not a cultural fit. Maybe they're, don't have the sort of same, principles and things. And we've had to make some hard calls along the way as well to sort of exit people from the business or have people depart. We said, sometimes you look back and you go, well, it's always hard to lose somebody, but maybe that is the right thing for us at this time. So I feel like most businesses have probably felt like always recruiting. But partly that's because we've been growing a lot over that time as well. But your team is the most important thing. Let's face it. You can be a great advisor, but if you don't have good support under you, or around you rather, I should say, then you're not going to be very effective because you're just so limited. And, I think we've got lots of really awesome people, there, but we just always seem a little bit short. We always just feel like we need that one more assistant, or that one more person who's really good at the technical side, that one who's really good at modeling. And that's just so hard. I think especially in this environment right now, I'd probably say, every advisor is probably crying out for a few more people to support and help them. And it's just, it's challenging to find them.
Yeah, I think the people part is the biggest challenge, finding good people, supporting them the right way, having them work in their flow, and, not being overwhelmed, but be busy enough, then the right people underneath them. And you're trying to grow a business and manage the commercial side of things. It'd be great to just hire 50 people and then everyone's nice and comfortable, but then that doesn't work commercially either as well. And I think the point that you made about finding good people, and sometimes you have someone that's just the wrong fit, and that's not good for them, it's not good for you, it's not good for the business, not good for the clients either. So I think that finding good people goes a long way. But as a senior team member in your team and as an advisor, essentially leading the clients and then responsible for the people underneath you, what's your biggest or your top tip around how to get the most out of the people that are supporting you in the advice that you're providing as a frontline advisor?
Oh gosh, I reckon it's just treating people like humans. Having empathy for their situation, giving them flexibility. COVID's probably been great for that, in a sense that we've got more flexibility around the way that we work. But I think that it's really important to kind of recognize people for who they are. Like, maybe this sounds a little bit silly, but, some people are morning people and some people are afternoon people. So, having a set 8 to 5 business hours or something along those lines, it just doesn't actually work for everybody. And you can't make everybody fit into the same box. And I know, certainly if I just think about some of the members of our team, we've got people that are working different hours or, almost like peak in terms of their productivity at 10 p.m. at night, which you've got to kind of give them room to be able to do that the way that, work the way that they want to work. And sometimes that's a bit frustrating because maybe, maybe you want them there at 7:30 in the morning when, like I'm more of a morning person in terms of my productivity, from there. So there's challenges in it as well, but I think you've got to give people just, room to be themselves. And even we had a new staff member join a couple of months before I went on mat leave, and, something sort of happened to them. And I was sort of saying, just why don't you just pack up for the day and go home and, take care of yourself. And she was actually so surprised that I cared, which, for me, I was like, what, wouldn't everybody think this way? Wouldn't everybody just say, go and put yourself first? But she said, at some of the other businesses she'd worked for, that just wasn't the case. And I was really astounded because I thought that was just the normal thing to do. But, clearly it's not always, which is a bit sad. But, I think, treating people like humans, having some empathy.
I think that the point that you make about having people work in their zone is an important one as well. Like, how do they want to be working? And as you say, the COVID situation sort of pushed us into that, or sort of accelerated that, our need to adapt to that as well. But I think ultimately, like, people have jobs to deliver certain outcomes, and if someone wants to get to an outcome one way, really, like, it's the outcome that's important, not necessarily how you get there.
Yeah,
that's work. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's probably not as common as it should be, but it seems to be more businesses are catching on to that as well. And I think that's where, as you say, like, people are feeling empowered to do that, to get to the outcome, but do it in a way that works for them. Ultimately, that's the goal.
Oh, absolutely. And you create loyalty through doing that as well, because then people, can appreciate the flexibility and know that you do care about them and you're going to support them.
That's right. Yeah. And again, like, going back to those outcomes, it's like, if you're getting there, does it matter if someone goes and, has to drop their kids off somewhere or deal with an appointment or a personal thing? I think the COVID situation, again, sort of accelerated that people were forced into their bunkers, and, you just get that immediate exposure. I know that, like, I've got some mates who work in banking, and for them, it's very much like even more than financial advice. It's like you're expected to be almost like a robot, and then you're just there to do your deals and, be ultra professional all of the time. And not to say that financial advisors aren't professional, but I think bankers take it probably to another level, and sort of forced on them, and it breaks down some of those barriers. And the end result is building better relationships with people, as you say, more loyalty, both with your customers and your team as well. And I think that you get that teamwork flowing, and that's where the magic happens. Cara, I'm keen to hear, like, you've been at it for a fair while in advice. What would you say, what's the most difficult skill that you've had to master to be the advisor that you are today?
Most difficult skill, to be honest, is probably delegating. I think I'm generally a pretty controlling person. I think sort of I'd probably label myself a bit of a perfectionist as well, which can be a real strength, but it can also be a big downfall, because then, maybe you're working on things a little bit too long, or sort of, you're never going to get things perfect in a sense. And so I'd probably say that delegating is something that I've continuously struggled with in a sense, but have just had to get better and better at it as time has gone on. And, there'll be days where I slip back and go, I don't have time to sort of pass this on, but that would almost be one of the things I'd go back and kind of really tell myself as a younger advisor is, is just, to sort of, I guess, to sort of trust more and delegate more. And, it's almost that, what we were saying a moment ago, that, maybe someone's not going to do it exactly my way, but it's still going to be, done. It's going to be done well, from there. And I think that's probably something I'll continue working on for the rest of my life. But it's certainly been something I've had to focus a bit more on, as well as things have gone busier and life has gotten busier over the last few years.
Well, with a growing client base and a growing family, it sort of does get forced on you a little bit, because you reach a point where it's just not possible to do all of the things. But I think, tying that back to what you're saying around team and getting the right people around you, I think it's also an important thing, because there's not many people that like to be micromanaged. There are a few people that want, really clear guardrails and work really well in that sort of environment. But I would say that they're broadly in the minority. So when you're doing that, it can become a bit of a roadblock for the people around you to get the best out of them, or to feel like they've got, the control of their destiny that they want to get as well. So, one advantage, you get more stuff done for you instead of having to do it yourself. But secondly, you are empowering those people around you as well. Cara, I know that you're currently on mat leave, but just like in your career and as an advisor and with your clients, what are you focused on now? What's sort of coming up for you?
Well, I guess right now in this moment, my focus is really on my family, and even just going back to work at some stage next year. I think a big focus for me would be about achieving the elusive work-life balance that I think everybody probably struggles with it to a certain extent. So one of my family's financial goals is for my wife and I to both be able to work part-time until our girls are in school. So, we've worked really hard over the last sort of, decade and a half to kind of get to a point where financially we can afford to be able to sort of work less and live more, and be around our kids a little bit more from there. So, it's probably not a very worky sort of focus, but really that's what matters to me at the moment is prioritizing my family a bit more and working less.
And how do you practically, how do you structure that with you being in as an advisor? You've got clients that you're looking after and responsible for. Maybe you haven't got this all figured out exactly yet, but how do you envisage you managing that moving forward?
Well, even before I went on mat leave, I moved down to a 4-day work week for a period of time. But just before I went on leave, I did have to bring it back up a little bit, back to the 5 days, because I was struggling to get things done. But I am a big advocate for the 4-day work week. At the moment, just because our youngest is so little, my wife's only been working 3 days a week as well. So we've had, lots of family time over the last couple of months. And then what I would envision when I do go back to work is, again, say having 3-day work week, but perhaps initially we'll just see how that tracks. And, I'm pretty realistic in the sense that even if maybe I'm only in the office for 3 days or have 3 sort of set work days, yes, I'll probably do a little bit of work on those other days, in terms of checking emails and filling calls. And I'm totally fine with that, just to sort of smooth things over. But I think it's more so just about setting the limits and some boundaries. So, at the Wealth Designers, we've always kind of worked off different metrics in terms of, our target number of meetings per week, our target clients that we want to sort of meet and engage with. And again, I guess it's just sort of resetting some of those in line with how much I do want to work over that period of time as well. Just making sure that, it's achievable, trusting my team, as much as I can as well to manage the rest. And, we've got so many great advisors at the moment, and I'm a really big believer that different personality types work best with different clients. So, I often would get referrals and I'll have a little bit of a chat with them, and I might actually feel, actually you'd be a great client for Robin or for David or for Dawn or whoever it might be, that, if I get a referral, I don't need to follow that through all of the way. They might actually be a better fit for somebody else. So, I'm more than happy. And we've got a really good kind of team culture that it's not sort of every advisor for themselves. It's really about how we achieve as a team. And I think that's a really good culture to have. And I want to make sure that we continue to have that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know when my wife and I had our first child, like it sort of forced a level of putting some extra boundaries in place to allow me to provide her with a level of support and also to be present as a dad as well. When we had the second one, though, it was like game on, and it needed to sort of take those to the next level. And as you know, you're balancing the two. It is a pretty full on sort of thing. So I have personally been forced to sort of do something, not feel like forced in a way that I was very, keen on doing, but to do that. And it's been really interesting because I think like for me, like I've spoken to a number of other advisors in the same position, that it's like you feel like this really deep sense of obligation for your clients and the things that are going on, and you feel like you need to be available, or like not all of the time, but almost all of the time as things come up. But I've found for me that when I put those boundaries in place, the world didn't stop. Things still happened. Clients got looked after. The important things still all move forward. But you are sort of, being human and able to do the things that you need to do or want to be doing in that space as well. So it's been really interesting that I think like easy to have that feeling that you need to be there, but when you're not and you just try it and then everything just works, and it is sort of pretty enlightening and, empowering to allow you to do that as well.
Oh, definitely. I think, I guess it's not just kids, but, just different life experiences can put things into perspective. And what I've sort of often tried to do is almost in a sense train my clients. So, maybe I'm training them that I'm not available out of business hours, or I'm not available on the weekend, or, I'm not available on my, day off unless it's, it's a time critical thing in a sense. And for the most part, people are pretty supportive of that because, you're working with these clients, you're getting to know them. They want the best for you as well. They don't want you to be sacrificing your family time when they've, they've know of my family and heard of them or seen pictures, and, they want me to be able to enjoy that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that it often just deepens your connection with them when they realize that you're not just some finance robot on the other.
No, yeah, you're a real person.
Cara, my last question for you is if you could turn back time and go back to the start of your journey in advice and do one thing differently, what would it be?
I don't think I'd do anything differently. I think that, I've had a lot of successes and a lot of failures over the years, but each of them has really led me to be where I am. That sounds really corny, but it, for every kind of, mistake or failure that I've had, I think I've probably become a better person or a better advisor because of it. And yeah, I think everything has been pretty valuable, even if sometimes it's been incredibly challenging and, caused a lot of stress and heartache and, tears, multiple times. But, it's all just part of the journey. And yeah, no, it's all been positive in one way or another, as challenging as the last.
It's the old thing that the obstacle is the way sort of thing. And
yeah.
As long as you're learning those lessons, that it all contributes to the next step and the next step and the next step.
Oh, that's right. Absolutely.
I love that. Cara, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights, and again for taking the time when you're on mat leave. Great to see you guys smashing it over there.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for having me.